Sometime later, after everyone had completed their preparations, the majority had crafted their dishes for presentation. Li Shulai, too, prepared his offering, exuding confidence and satisfaction with his creation. However, it wasn't just one dish. He had prepared an abundance, filling an entire table. The sheer quantity left everyone in the room surprised. Despite their astonishment, their expressions soon shifted to disapproval. "Quantity alone does not determine quality," someone remarked coldly. "Does he truly expect the Pavilion Master to taste every single dish?" Others murmured in agreement. "Our leader is known for being extremely particular." "Who invited this young man?" another voice inquired. "His cultivation may not be advanced, but his mind seems to overflow with ideas." At that moment, an elderly man dressed in blue robes approached Li Shulai. With a stern expression, he said, "Young man, you are unfamiliar here. Being unconventional will not earn you any favor. It may even breed contempt." Unperturbed, Li Shulai calmly responded, "The final judgment lies with the Pavilion Master. If my food does not meet the standard, I will return to continue my practice." His unwavering confidence irritated many onlookers. One of them snapped, "Do you even know if what you've cooked is any good? The finest ingredients require only the simplest preparation. The food grown in Qingfeng Temple's spiritual fields is nurtured by spiritual energy. You're wasting precious resources. Why hasn't anyone removed him yet?" Several others echoed the sentiment. Exactly. High-quality ingredients need only basic cooking. Meanwhile, from a higher vantage point, Lin Shuwan and Old Man Chow observed the scene. Watching his senior sister's subtle reactions, Old Man Chow thought, although senior sister maintains an air of maturity and composure in public, her true thoughts are difficult to discern. But her gesture just now, tapping the armrest, reveals that she, too, is intrigued. He smiled to himself. No one understands her better than I do. He cleared his throat softly to catch Li Shulai's attention. When Li Shulai glanced up, Old Man Chow made a discreet signal. Instantly understanding the message, Li Shulai smiled knowingly. Old Man Chow's smile widened slightly, impressed. The young man is remarkably composed and perceptive. If I had been in his position, I might have reacted with far less restraint. Let's hope our Xiao Ning recognizes this opportunity. Shortly thereafter, the tasting session commenced. A group of young women approached Li Shulai's table, carefully selecting portions of his food and delivering them to the judges. As the judges sampled the dishes, they were visibly taken aback. The flavors were so exquisite that tears began to form in their eyes, and they could not resist taking more. Observing their reactions, Li Shulai felt a sense of satisfaction. It seems the judges are thoroughly enjoying it, he thought, now eagerly anticipating the Pavilion Master's final judgment. Pavilion Master Lin Shuhuan approached the table where all the dishes were displayed. The first dish served to her was Song Sao's fish soup. As she tasted it, she found it better than expected, though it still did not meet her high standards and was quickly eliminated. The fifth dish was chopped pepperfish head. After taking a bite, she liked this dish more than the previous one. Li Shulai, observing Lin Shuhuan's expression, thought to himself, "It looks promising from her reaction." When she reached the 10th dish, Mao Chuewang, she had already tried numerous plates. Everyone grew excited as they anticipated her reaction to Li Shulai's dish. The 12th dish was Mapo Tofu. Upon seeing it, Lin Shuhuan was genuinely surprised. "Mapo Tofu?" she thought. "This is my favorite." As she took a bite, she was shocked. This Mapo Tofu, she marveled. The perfect level of spiciness, the smooth and tender texture. "It's so good I could eat it with 10 bowls of rice." Her expression became visibly warm and pleased after just one bite. She turned to Li Shulai and asked, "What did you add to this dish?" Li Shulai with confidence replied, "I added sincerity." Then, with a hint of nostalgia, he revealed, "In my previous life, I always made at least 5 dishes and 1 soup for dinner. It's truly made with sincerity, the sincerity of someone devoted to their craft." Despite this, others in the room were displeased. "He should be eliminated," one person argued. "Quantity doesn't matter, and the Pavilion Master only took a single bite." Another laughed, saying, "Looks like we don't even need to try the rest." However, Pavilion Master Lin Shuhuan cut them off, instructing her maid, "Give Li Shulai the magic weapon and the cultivation book from the top shelf of my library." The entire room was stunned. "What? The results have been announced before we've even finished tasting the dishes?" someone exclaimed. "Aren't you going to try our food? This is inappropriate." But before the complaints could escalate, an elderly chef stepped forward and spoke. "You don't understand," he said with admiration. "In all my 60 years of studying cuisine, I have never seen such a fine delicacy. I've dedicated my life to cooking, and yet this young man has surpassed me effortlessly." He turned to the crowd, adding, "Even if his cultivation hasn't progressed much, his cooking skills far exceed those of anyone I've seen. Even those who have just started their culinary journey. He completed dozens of dishes in the time it takes others to make just one. Is he even human?" With that, the elderly chef approached Li Shulai, kneeling before him and pleading, "Please, will you accept me as your apprentice?" Surprised, Li Shulai hesitated, unsure of what to do. As the evening came to a close, and the cultural festival drew to an end, people began returning to their duties. Pavilion Master Lin Shuhuan, however, invited Li Shulai and the others to her home. Once there, she turned to Li Shulai and said, "I want you to cook something for us." She then declared, "From today onward, you are my apprentice." Li Shulai was shocked upon hearing this. Shouldn't there be a formal apprenticeship ceremony? He wondered. Is it really that simple? Can you become a master just by recognizing someone from the stove? Noticing his confusion, Lin Shuhuan asked, "What's the matter? Do you think becoming a disciple is too simple?" Embarrassed, Li Shulai replied, "Well, just a little." With a soft laugh, Lin Shuhuan said, "It's the 21st century. Don't be so rigid in your thinking." With that, she left. Later, at the dining table, Lin Shuhuan instructed, "When you return, practice on your own according to the scriptures. If you have any questions, ask your uncle Chao Yang or write them down. You'll need to come to Qingyun Temple once a week for training. I'll let you know the specifics later." She also told Zhao Ning, "You should come along as well. Master will help you resolve your cultivation issues." Zhao Ning thanked her grandmother with a big smile on her face, saying, After that, both Li Shulai and Zhao Ning walked back together to their university dorms. Zhao Ning glanced back at Li Shulai and said, "I noticed you've been staring at me the entire way. What's on your mind?" Surprised, Li Shulai thought, "Does she have eyes on the back of her head?" Confidently, he replied, "Nothing," adding with a teasing grin, "From now on, I'll be more tolerant toward younger people." He playfully teased her, "Come on, don't dawdle, do you hear me, my little niece?" Zhao Ning processed what he had said, and immediately got angry, snapping, "Li Shulai, are you taking advantage of me?" The next morning, Li Shulai went to Professor Guo's office to present his new graduation thesis. Upon reviewing it, Professor Guo remarked, "This thesis is excellent. The structure is clear, the arguments are well presented, and the data analysis is solid and convincing. Well done, Shulai. I'm very optimistic about your future." Li Shulai, with a smile, replied, "Mr. Guo, your praise is a bit too direct." Professor Guo, smiling, continued, "Let's discuss a few minor points. The paper could benefit from a bit more elaboration on certain key concepts." As they discussed some minor adjustments, suddenly a woman in a suit entered the office. She addressed Professor Guo. "Please come to the Academic Affairs Office." Professor Guo turned to Li Shulai and said, "We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. I need to attend to something first." As Li Shulai watched Professor Guo leave, he had a strange feeling, thinking to himself, "It's happening." When Professor Guo stepped out of his office, he noticed Zhang Shuili standing nearby. However, he paid her no attention and walked past her, ignoring her completely. Furious, Zhang Shuili muttered under her breath, "How dare this old man try to compete with me? If he doesn't let me graduate, I'll make his life miserable too." Meanwhile, Li Shulai also exited the office. Zhang Shuili spotted him and thought, "Li Shulai, look at how unlucky your favorite teacher is now. Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" Later that day, back at the boys' dormitory, Zhang Ming noticed that Li Shulai seemed to be in a bad mood. Concerned, he asked, "Shulai, what's going on? Didn't your thesis pass? You look serious." Li Shulai shook his head and said, "Don't worry, I'm just thinking about something else." Zhang Ming, being his best friend, patted his shoulder and said, "Don't stress too much. If there's anything you need help with, let me know." Li Shulai playfully punched Zhang Ming on the head and joked, "You should be paying more attention to your own thesis." Zhang Ming sighed, "I'm already desperate about that thesis. Forget it, I'd rather take a nap." Li Shulai smirked and warned, "Be careful, or you might not graduate." But deep down, his thoughts turned darker. Mr. Guo's punishment is coming soon. Before the disciplinary notice is issued, I need to put my plan into action. The evidence I've gathered over time will finally come to light. Later that evening, in the university office, campus investigators arrived with Zheng Shuili to conduct an investigation into a serious matter involving Professor Guo. Mr. Guo, surprised and confused, wondered what was happening as he saw Zhang Shuili crying in front of the campus investigator. The investigator, maintaining a serious tone, addressed him. "Mr. Guo Guoqiang, a classmate has reported you for abusing your power and attempting to take advantage of her. Please, explain what's going on." Mr. Guo slammed his hand on the table and adamantly denied the allegations. "This is completely false. I guarantee, based on my personal integrity, that I had no intention of taking advantage of her. I, Guo Guoqiang, have served this institution for many years, and everyone here knows the kind of person I am." Zhang Shuili, with tears streaming down her face, looked at him and said, "Professor Guo, didn't you tell me that my graduation thesis wouldn't pass? Didn't you say that I wouldn't be able to make it through the defense?" Professor Guo, exasperated, responded, "That's because your graduation thesis was fundamentally flawed from the start. And furthermore, more importantly, you didn't even write it yourself. You had someone else revise it for you." Zhang Shuili broke down further in front of the investigators, sobbing, "Dear investigators, do you really think I, an innocent girl, would need to use my innocence to slander someone? How important is innocence to a young woman? Would I throw that away just for a graduation thesis? Just for a defense? I've received numerous scholarships over the years. Why would I resort to something like this?" The female investigator, moved by her tears, comforted Zhang Shuili and began to sympathize with her, thinking to herself, this student is young and beautiful, and her family is well off. There's no reason for her to use such serious accusations to frame an aging man like Mr. Guo. After all, what would she gain by doing so? Professor Guo, clearly frustrated, addressed the investigators firmly. "Please, do not make irresponsible remarks based on Zhang Shuili's unfounded claims." However, Zhang Shuili, still crying and positioning herself as the victim, tearfully addressed the investigators. "Dear leaders, listen, Teacher Guo is asking me for evidence. If he truly has nothing to hide, shouldn't he be the one to provide proof? Isn't it up to him to show there are no hidden rules?" Professor Guo, growing angrier, shouted at her, "You slander me and then demand to provide evidence." With an innocent expression, Zhang Shuili responded, "How can I, a student who hasn't even entered society yet, compete with someone like Teacher Guo, who has been part of the system for decades? Besides, I always thought of him as an upright and honorable teacher." Professor Guo, now even more exasperated, retorted, "Zhang Shuili, stop lying. I have a family, a wife and children. I cannot afford to have my reputation destroyed by these false accusations. You claim there are hidden rules, so where is your evidence?" Zhang Shuili told investigators. That day, he let her into his office, locked the door, and whispered to her while touching her secretly. "And then he pulled off my skirt." How could he leave evidence if he was capable of such a filthy act? How could he allow me to leave evidence? The female investigator interrupted, her voice firm. "That's enough, Zhang Shuili. No more talking." But Zhang Shuili, still sobbing, continued, "He must be a sexual offender. Who knows how many other girls he's hurt? I'm the only one brave enough to stand up." She paused for a moment, then added, "I've heard that the passing rate of students under Teacher Guo is unusually low." The female investigator comforted Zhang Shuili, saying, "Don't worry, the organization will uncover the truth. Just wait for the result." Then, turning to Professor Guo, she added, "Until the investigation is complete, you should stop teaching and take some time to reflect on your actions." Troubled and anxious, Professor Guo felt helpless, unsure of how to prove his innocence. Meanwhile, Zhang Shuili smiled to herself, thinking, "Smelly old man, did you really think you could fight me? My plan has succeeded." Zhang Ming, who had been secretly watching from behind the door, was disgusted. Damn Zhang Shuili. She really played her part well. He quickly ran to find Li Shulai and exclaimed, "It happened just as you predicted. Zhang Shuili accused Teacher Guo of sexual harassment. Should we take action now?" Li Shulai smiled knowingly and replied, "The night is dark and windy, perfect for action." At midnight, Li Shulai and Zhang Ming, both dressed in black like thieves, snuck around the campus. They plastered photos of Zhang Shuili with other teachers in compromising positions all over the university, where everyone could easily see them. The next morning, the campus was buzzing with shock. Students and faculty were stunned by what they saw. Zhang Shuili, who had always presented herself as innocent and well-respected, was revealed to be someone entirely different. We completely misjudged her, many thought. At the same time, in the girls' dormitory, Zhang Shuili woke up, still feeling drowsy. She noticed her friends staring at her with disappointment, creating an awkward atmosphere. Confused, Zhang Shuili asked, "Why are you all looking at me like that? What's going on?" One of her friends nervously replied, "It seems someone posted your pictures all over campus." Hearing this, Zhang Shuili jumped out of bed. "What photos? Where?" she demanded. Her friend showed her the photos. Images of her in a relationship with a teacher. Zhang Shuili, shocked, quickly snatched the photo from her friend's hand. Enraged, she tore it into pieces, thinking furiously, "Who did this? Do they have a death wish? I'll make sure they pay for this."